district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
All right, welcome everybody to the Week 8 GOAT District podcast. We are without our fearless leader tonight. JD had an emergency work function to attend. And so we're going to let him keep his job, and we'll take over instead, and handle the fun stuff here. But we got a great show lined up for you tonight. With no further ado, I'm going to just let Theo get in here and introduce our guest tonight, and we're going to get the ball rolling.
So tonight, I'm really happy that we have Michael Edelman on the show. Michael is in the New York Super with me, so I have the privilege of going against him. In the same league now for 2 seasons in a row. He's an NFFC Hall of Famer. He's won 6 primetime leagues, 8 classic leagues, has done extremely well in the auction formats. He took down an Ultimate League title, and last year in FFPC, he was 4th overall in the main event. Michael's one of the best drafters around, and is tremendous at managing his teams through the regular season. And I'm really interested to hear his thoughts about, the rest of the NFL season moving forward and some of the big hot button issues that are on all of our minds this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to have you, Mike. And also the thing that Theo maybe didn't say is you're a hell of an auction player too. Going up against Mike in a couple of auctions in past years has definitely sharpened my own skills a little bit. So. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. I appreciate it, guys, for all the kind words, and glad to be here. Excited to talk some football tonight.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we were actually just right before the show started, we were kind of talking about the free agent runs in NFFC and FFPC, and specifically the second run and how we handle that. And one of the things we were talking about was kind of, the Sunday run is a little bit tough if you're trying to do it on Sunday morning with the FFPC. But, what's your strategies on that, Mike? How do you handle getting ready for that run? And, what are you doing with that?
Yeah. One of the things I was saying off air was, for me as a volume player, the Sunday fab run it doesn't work for me, and quite honestly, like this year, kind of seeing it for the full year from the beginning, it honestly might force me to cut back some leagues. One, I play a lot of leagues, and Sunday mornings, if you have kids, it's sports, right? Like my kids play soccer, they play baseball, and I can't be at the field with them, at 11:30, 12 o'clock, and have to check my fab results for 30 or 40 teams and then go and check lineups. It just doesn't work for me. Maybe it's good for the casual drafter who has 2 or 3 leagues. I get it. I understand it from that standpoint, but for someone like me, it just doesn't work. I much prefer like a Saturday night run than a Sunday morning run for me.
Right. Yeah. I'm kind of in the middle probably on that. I can deal with it, but there are some tough things about it. And the main thing is you want to stay organized. Like when I do I try to do my bids on sometime during the day on Saturday or Saturday night, just get them in so that I don't have to worry about it too much unless there's just, some kind of really late breaking news. But even like with the Waller news, when we had a pretty good idea he was not going to be playing, I had my bid set up and ready to go. so that I could just pop them in there. And one of the things I try to do is Theo knows already I'm notorious for like actually still using pen and paper and writing stuff down. So I like literally have a piece of paper, as I'm doing my bids on Saturday nights, okay, like these are the leagues that I actually might have changes in, where I need to change my starting lineup. And, so that when crunch time comes, because I'm managing my restaurant sometimes on Sunday morning. And so I don't have a lot of time either. And I've just got to get in there and, and hammer out those changes. So I've got kind of a list of, okay, these were the lineup questions that I had, so that when the inactives come out, and also these were the bids I might or might not have won. And, here's what I was planning to do with that. So I can just kind of go through my teams and bam, 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 get them done as quick as possible. So
I'm kind of with you guys. I try to right after the first run, I try to get everything done like Friday night, and then I can go back Saturday night or early Sunday morning and try to maybe add one or two things if there's late news. I do like to spend some time early Sunday morning, like 7 in the morning, something like that, and just go through each and every one of my lineups and just triple check everything. But yeah, I'm not trying to make those last minute waiver wire bids. Although Andrew Schellenberg and I on main event team, we split. We did make a couple of late Sunday morning moves. I think we got them in at like 9:45 this week, and they ended up working pretty well. So never say never, but yeah, Sunday morning is really, really hard if you have kids, and I try not to do anything last minute. I don't think our EV last minute on anything fantasy football wise is usually positive. So especially when it comes to spending that valuable fab money.
That is true.
Yeah, I've flirted many times with just installing a total hands-off rule after like for an hour before kickoff. If I'm thinking about making a change at that point, I probably just shouldn't. So, but every once in a while you got to do it. You get that late breaking news. It does matter. So, like Trey Sermon being inactive, or what was the other one that? There was one of them that was a total week one that ended up being
just Zach Moss and Sermon, right? We were standing online. Yeah. I was with you, Dan, when that happened. Yeah.
And then there something though, like week one that was like everybody was like, "Oh, this is," and whatever it was, it didn't even happen. Like it didn't matter. Everybody was putting somebody into their lineup, and then they ended up just doing absolutely nothing. I don't remember who it was, but sometimes it works like that too. So. Tough times with those late changes. So anyway, let's kind of dive into a few things. One thing we saw, I think probably all of us probably thought it was a little bit surprising. The Bengals taking on the Ravens, and just absolutely, they put a kind of a little bit of a beat down on them. They had that game pretty well in hand, I thought, most of the way through. What do you think about that, Mike? Was that something that was surprising to you? And what are your thoughts on the Bengals right now?
Yeah, it definitely was surprising. It seems like they had a plan to come in there and throw the ball. They hadn't really done that this year. It was something they were doing last year. Maybe they felt like Burrow's knee was ready and they just unleashed it. It was surprising to see them do that, and a little more surprising to see Baltimore not keep up. Like I kept waiting. I have some Lamar shares. I just kept waiting for him. This is great. This is great. He's going to come back and throw a 50 burger up there, and never came. So, but from Cincinnati, it's great. They look like their offense is gelling and their line is doing good enough to give Burrow time. And with all the receivers and plus Mixon, it's looking really good in Cincinnati right now.
Yeah, I would agree.
I completely agree as well. I think they're very good. I think their offense is dangerous, and I think the last couple of weeks we've actually talked about it on the Goat District. Burrow just keeps looking more and more mobile. He's moving around very, very well in the pocket. It seems like the injury is just completely in the rearview mirror, and he looks confident, and he has terrific weapons up and down that offense and a scheme that's working. So I'm very, very bullish on them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to me, one of the more surprising things is how good their defense has looked. Their defense looks like they're kind of rounding into form as well. And, they've got better speed on defense than what I remembered or expected, or I don't know exactly how to phrase it, but I was just surprised. I mean, they were closing on the ball fast, and so it was fun to watch. And it's good to see Cincinnati kind of coming back around. They've been downtrodden for so long. I always like teams that are kind of cycling back up, and it's fun to watch them, fun to root for them a little bit. But I think obviously Jamar Chase is the cream of the crop there in Cincinnati, right? There's no denying that he just looks like an absolute superstar. What do you guys think about T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd? How does the Jamar Chase experience influence those two, and how you're treating them?
Listen, Higgins still had 15. He still led the team with 15 targets this week. I think Higgins and Chase they're the 1-2. I think Boyd's the one that's taking the back seat. I mean, some of the games, depending on the defenses they're seeing, might change. But to me, I think Chase and Higgins every week are going to be no doubt starters. One might get the blow-up game versus the other, but both of them could have easily blown up last week. I think Boyd's the one, unfortunately, that's taking the back seat right now, though, from my standpoint.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, Chase is every bit a wide receiver one, and he's got a chance to finish as the overall wide receiver one. I mean, I think, if anybody's going to do it besides Cooper Kupp, Chase is very much in that mix. Higgins, Dwayne McFarland had a great tweet about this, about his target share coming back from injury. So he's locked in. He's a guy you should feel confident about usage-wise every week. I think he's a locked-in wide receiver too. Boyd is interesting. I feel like in NFFC, more likely than not, you're going to be starting him. But in other leagues, I think where you don't have to start 3 wide receivers, he becomes a guy where it's a lot of weeks he should be on your bench. It's going to be hard to predict his games. I think that he's a guy that is more of a flex, at best. And CJ Uzoma is a little interesting. The guy's got 5 touchdown catches now in 4 games. He doesn't get a lot of targets, but it's like a cheap way into that offense.
It's a little reminding you of Robert Tonyan from last year a little bit, right?
I think that's actually a great comparison. And I think that every week somebody's going to point out that he's just not getting enough targets. He's touchdown dependent, but sometimes those guys end up with 10 to 12 touchdowns, and tight end's such a mess. Mixon, I'll be interested to hear your guys' thoughts on the backfield as well, but Mixon looks good, and Samaje Perine looks very good. I mean, I think he needs to be treated as an elite handcuff. A guy that if their starter went down, he would become an RB1. I think on a weekly basis. The guy's a good pass catcher, and you saw him, break off for 20+ yard touchdown runs multiple times this season. So, what's your guys' thoughts on Mixon and Perine, and also Dan? I'm interested as the tight end whisperer on the Goat District. I'm interested in your thoughts on Mr. Uzoma.
All right, so I'll start with Uzoma. I do think he's an interesting player. He was somebody I liked last year before he had the Achilles injury. And so he's somebody that, definitely was on my radar. I've got him on some best ball teams, things like that. It's like a super cheap option, super cheap way into the Cincinnati offense. But yeah, he's one of those guys he's never going to get that many targets just due to, who else we have in that offense. But, he's going to get forgotten by the defense almost every time, and he had the good fortune to go up against the Baltimore defense. And, if you don't take away anything else from, watching that game, what you should take away is that the Baltimore defense makes every tight end look like Travis Kelce, almost. I mean, it's staggering. I went through and I just took, like the best tight end who played against Baltimore each week, added them up. We had Darren Waller, 10 for 105 and a touchdown. Travis Kelce, 7 for 109 and a touchdown. TJ Hawkinson, 2 for 10, no touchdowns. Cue the sad trombone there. Noah Fant, 6 for 46 and a touchdown. Mo Alley Cox, 3 for 50. Jared Cook, 4 for 25 and a touchdown. CJ Uzomah, 3 for 91 and 2 touchdowns. Add them all up, you've got 35 catches for 436 yards and 6 touchdowns, which, if that was a single tight end, would be the tight end 2 in, whether you're talking about standard or whether you're talking about FFPC scoring, right behind Travis Kelce. Standard scoring 16.37 per game, and FFP scoring 18.87 per game. So that's your little statistical walk down the Ravens, and this is just your reminder that when Cincinnati gets into weeks 15 through 17, they get Baltimore week 16, and they get Kansas City, who has also been a sieve against the tight end, week 17. So, if Uzomah's sitting out there at any point, gets dropped, because somebody had to deal with bye weeks, or, is just still sitting out there, he might be a guy you want to pick up and hang on to just for that stretch run.
That's a great call, Dan.
Yep.
So what do you think, Mike? What do you think about the ring backs, Uzomah? Any other thoughts on there?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Mixon has looked good. The thing that's interesting to me though is why, and again, maybe some of it was game script. I didn't go back and watch the game, but why him and Pirine having like a 50-50 split this past week is a little bit concerning. But even with I mean, Evans looked good the week before. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Are we going to see like what we saw at the first couple weeks with Mixon, like getting back to those 20-25 touches a week? I don't know. Honestly, and I had this conversation. I know our buddy Chris Vaccaro is a big Mixon guy, and I had this. I'm not, to be quite honest. I mean, I happen to have one share of Mixon, and it's in an ultimate league, which of course is like one of my higher leagues. But I of the Mixon versus Barkley, like him and I had that conversation, and I just didn't. I didn't think, like, if they were both healthy, I just didn't think Mixon could do that, like what Barkley could do. But he could. I mean, he's looked good. I just don't know, like, what, maybe Cincinnati's just nursing him back now from the injury to make sure he's going to get back to health before they start feeding him again. We'll see. We'll see how that works out.
Or maybe it's also. I mean, Zach Taylor, like last year, we saw so much with Gio Bernard, and I think this year we thought they'd kind of get away with it, mixing volume wise. But like you said, he likes using that second back, and I think that he has a lot of faith in Pirine as a pass catcher, and I think he likes to use him in that role. So I'm not sure if that's gonna go away. I think that I don't see any reason why you kind of put Pirine back in the box. I mean, he missed the one game off of COVID, comes back immediately and sees work again. So I don't know. I think Pirine's gonna just be a kind of a thorn in the side for Mixon owners, and hopefully it's a good enough offense that you'll still get that at least high end RB2 value for Mixon, with some RB1 weeks mixed in there. But I think Pirine is just going to keep his. It's going to keep him down in terms of, what he can do overall, especially as a receiver. Yeah,
totally agree. I mean, I think Mixon was one of those guys, I took him in a couple places just because I felt like, there was at least some chance, if they gave him the full workload, that he could just be absolutely crushing. And as usual, he at least slightly underwhelms. And he's got to be thinking, what do I have to do to shake Pirine? That was a thorn in his side at Oklahoma, and it's a thorn in his side again now. So, it's just, I don't know. I guess they stick together now. So, anything else on Cincinnati, or you guys ready to move on?
Yeah.
All right. Theo, where do you want to go from here?
We can kind of go to the opposite spectrum, an offense that's looking absolutely horrible is the Seattle Seahawks. How should we value DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett moving forward? And do we want any part of this backfield whatsoever? Let's start out with Mike.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think you saw last night with Metcalf. I mean, you have to play him, right? Like, it just takes one play with him. He's a freak. So, all you need is that one catch. I think he's quarterback proof. Lockett is a different story. Honestly, like I have Lockett on a few teams, and I benched him this week. I mean, I have strong wide receiver depth, so I can do that. But I don't see myself playing Lockett until Russ gets back, unless it's a supreme matchup, or I have to, because of bye weeks. You can't trust them right now with Geno there. The way I look at it is Metcalf, you have to play. Lockett, it's going to be dependent on your roster construction. If you can bench him, I would bench him. I have benched him. In terms of the backfield, I have a lot of shares of the backfield of both guys, Collins and Penny currently. I think you want to share. I mean, you saw Collins had 17 touches. Now he didn't do anything, but he had 17 touches the week before, similar, and he did something. It's an offense you want to have running back on. At some point, more injuries are going to happen. When there's one guy left, might be towards the end of the year, that's when you're going to want them. So I'm going to collect the Seattle running backs. I might not play them. If I'm forced to, I will in like bye weeks, but I want them on my bench at least until something happens where I can make that decision or if I want to use them or not. But I think they will have value at some point. Someone will in that backfield.
Yep, for sure. And I'm right there with you on Lockett and Metcalf. I think, Metcalf, you've just got to use, and Lockett. Honestly, I wanted to bench him in a lot more places than I was able to this past week. It just so happened that a lot of the teams where I owned Lockett, I had wide receivers from Buffalo or the Chargers or Dallas or, Minnesota or whatever. It was like every single team I'd go to it and I was like, oh, I got to start Lockett, and it was a horrible feeling because you could almost smell this game incoming. And, on the other hand, he's, if I'm really stuck for options, I am going to put Lockett in there because, he's also a guy who can get behind a defense and just, he's got the speed and the quicks to break some long ones as we've seen already. But I'm definitely looking forward to Russ Wilson getting back and, getting my Lockett shares moving again. And similarly to you, Mike, I've got a good bit of Collins. I didn't start him too many times this past week just because of he had the groin injury. And, with Penny coming back, I was a little bit less concerned about Penny than I was about just the groin injury knocking him out or something, a few plays into the game. And there were just players I felt like I could maybe trust a little bit more that I could throw into flexes and things like that. But yeah, it was, I don't mind putting Collins into a lineup even still. And as long as Carson's out, and that could be a while, I mean, with neck injuries, who knows how long that's going to be, he could be back in another week, or it could be, into season. So.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. Billy Wazowski, who was our guest last week, who we all know, we were actually DMing each other this week about Billy sent the NFFC Classic board in a Vegas draft we were in, where I passed up Cooper Kupp for Tyler Lockett, and Billy passed up Cooper Kupp for Robert Woods. So we were just talking about like a what could have been type thing. It's very painful to look back at that. I was very bullish on Lockett heading into the season. This is like the worst case scenario. He needs Russ Wilson. I mean, he's had back-to-back 2-catch games. He was doubled up in targets with Freddie Swain this week, which is just, I mean, Shane Waldron is just, he's awful. He's a stone. He can't elevate an offense without he couldn't elevate it with Russ. And now it just looks pitiful with Geno. But Geno, is an NFL veteran. You should be able to at least do a few things in there. So I was very disappointed with that. I mean, you start looking at your start sits with, Lockett. He's got to be way, way, way down there on the list. So I'm very pessimistic on that. I am interested in see how Rashad Penny works out for the rest of the season. I think that at some point he's going to get a chance. Like Dan said, Chris Carson might not play this year. If he can't get back full health with the neck, I don't see it happening. And Alex Collins is already a little banged up. Pete Carroll would love to see, Rashad Penny have a couple of big games. So I have, you guys, I have a fair amount of both of them. I added a lot of Rashad Penny this week. on waiver wires. So I'm kind of hopeful for it, but I think we'll see some Penny at some point in the high volume role.
Yeah, it definitely could be. I mean, I'm a little less bullish on Penny. I just, to me, he's kind of run his course, and I'm always expecting the hangnail that knocks him out for another 3 weeks. But one thing that we do know is that week 17, Seattle's going to be playing Detroit, and so again, if you can keep a Seattle running back option on your bench somewhere or in your starting lineup or whatever you need to do between now and then, that might be a good place to stick them in the lineup. All right, let's see. What about Kyle Pitts? How are you feeling about Pitts, Mike? Were you always a Pitts believer, or have you come around slowly to him, or are you still a non-believer? Where are you at on the Pitts experience?
Yeah, listen, I mean, I'm just one who rookie tight ends. I'm always, I was hesitant on, I believe in the player. Especially what you're seeing now, I think it's here to stay. I just, draft season, he wasn't for me at that price. I would always take Hawkinson over him, and then Pitts just was priced up too much for me to get, especially in FFPC. But with that being said, he's here to stay, right? I mean, he's a top 5 tight end, if not better, with what we're seeing, and hopefully, like coming off the bye week, it looks like they're looking to get him more involved now. I think he's going to be a thorn in my side going forward because I don't have any shares. So, in the season long streets, it's going to be probably just like last year when normally like the top tight ends, I don't have too many of them, right? Especially like Kelsey. I have a little Waller, little Kittle, but I typically will draft later on the tight ends normally and try to find the diamond in the rough instead of paying up for them.
Yeah, I mean, he looks unbelievable, and it's also such a consolidated, passing tree now in Atlanta. It looks like, we've talked about it on the GOAT District for a couple of weeks. We thought the Arthur Smith offense would get better, and it seems like he's kind of figuring it out. He's got two receivers in Ridley and Pitts. He's using Pitts all over the field, getting him the ball where he can, and Cordero Patterson has passed by Mike Davis big time. So it's an easy offense to figure out. I mean, Kyle Pitts for me is the Dynasty tight end 1. I don't think it's close. I think if you have a chance to buy high in Dynasty, there's really not a price I wouldn't pay. I think he's going to go in FFPC Dynasty startups. This coming summer, it'll be interesting where he'll go, but I think he'll go in the top 5 of every single one of them. And then in terms of redraft, he looks awesome. He looks like right behind Travis Kelce right now. And like you said, I don't think that's going to go away. So if you got Kyle Pitts, you're feeling great. I wish I could trade in some George Kittle shares for some Kyle Pitts shares right now, but yes. we can't really do anything about that. But yeah, he looks amazing. I have nothing but good things to say.
Yeah, for sure. I was on the same bus as Mike here on taking Hawkinson over Pitts pretty much every time. I did find a spot where I was able to get Pitts after Hawkinson, and then I think there's one other place where I said, screw it, I'm just going to take Pitts, just to have another share. And so it's nice to see him doing well there, but I am a little bit surprised by how far down the target tree is consolidated. And especially with Mike Davis kind of getting faded out more and more, and Cordarrelle kind of moving into that spot, it's like not even Gage is really doing that much. I mean, he scored a touchdown, sure, but he wasn't getting that many snaps in comparison to the main players. So seeing basically it's Pitts and Ridley and Cordarrelle. And that's about it in that offense. So, anytime you can get a piece of that, it's always good.
I think you guys will both profit in years to come off your not drafting rookie tight ends, because the best thing about Kyle Pitts is people are going to be chasing the next Kyle Pitts for years to come They're not going to be scared to draft those athletic rookie tight ends. And in dynasty startups, you're going to see, especially in FFPC dynasty startups, you're going to see people be willing to draft tight ends, top 3 overall more often. The next Kyle Pitts will be a big thing. It's going to be like the next DJ Shark, those outlier guys in situations that don't happen often. People always look for it the following season and the following season. So you guys will make some money off of this one. So don't take it too hard.
Yeah. That's a great point, Theo, because it's not, the one time is not going to change my strategy for sure. And I'm sure it's pretty much the same with you, Mike.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. So we got a quick question from Srikanth. Let's just dive in and hit that real quick, and then we'll get back into it. But he's looking for who should we add from AJ Green. I'm assuming it's Rondale Moore, Cobb, or MVS. Ayuk, Jefferson, Sony Michel. A lot of options there.
I think he's looking for one wide receiver and one running back. Am I reading that correctly? Because of the dash between the two. Which way would you go, Mike, of those wide receivers?
I get a lot will depend on the league context. I'm still a sucker for Rondale Moore. Especially with the end of the season schedule. I kind of want him on my roster just in case he gets in there for that playoff week. Those playoff matchups that Arizona has are so juicy. I would prefer the young legs there. I've given up on Ayuk at this point. He would have been the other guy, but I just don't see it happening. And then Sony Michel would probably be the other guy for me because I just want to have if Henderson gets hurt and Michel's the guy, I think he will be very playable.
What about you, Dan?
Okay. Yeah, Rondale Moore I definitely like the most as far as talent. It's kind of undeniable how much, and I got to take the L on this. I was just like, there is no way I'm drafting AJ Green at all. I stuck by my guns on that. I owned 0 shares. I did pick up 1 share off of waivers in one league, but I was basically out on the AJ Green experience. And the thing is, he's not getting that many targets, but he's doing something with the targets that he's getting. And he is on the field a little bit more than Rondale. So I think there's a little bit of a decision to be made there. For a 1 week rental this week, if Valdez Scantling warms up good and is ready to go, I don't know how you probably have to make a decision tomorrow night or tonight. But if you got room, I would probably stash either AJ Green and Rondale Moore, and then Valdez Scantling as being the 2 I like. Because I think those running backs, it's going to be really hard to get very much production this week out of most of them. Or at least I'm not able to discern which one is going to, be the lucky one to get it.
Yeah, I like your guys' call about Rondale Moore. I think he'd be a player I'd want for the rest of the season. But Van Jefferson's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
This past weekend, Rams were in 3 wide sets the entire game. And Van actually out-targeted Robert Woods. He caught a touchdown pass, and his routes run and his snaps in what we consider an elite offense are there. So he's a guy. Maybe this week Srikanth just spends does a very small bid on Van, save some fab. I like what Mike said about Sony Michel. So yeah, I'd like to grab 2 Rams here, and it probably wouldn't cost you that much. I mean, Sony, I think only had like 2 carries last week, so it's not going to be much hitting him either. So grab the Rams for cheap, and definitely don't go overspending on Brandon Bolden. I think that's the one you don't want to waste your money on. Despite having a 7-catch game last week, I think that's the one you don't want to spend money on. And I would go cheap this week and not go nuts.
Yeah, and if anybody can tell me who's going to be active between Ramondre Stevenson and JJ Taylor on any given week, I'm going to bring you on as a consultant. So just just slide my DMs and let me know. So I'll put you on for a couple weeks and see how you do. Okay. Anything else on that?
No.
Okay.
So we have I'll take the next one, Dan. We have this week. We have a lot of very good teams coming off of bye weeks. Which team are we most excited for? And is there a player that you're interested to see his usage and role coming off of a bye week? Is there any particular player standing out? I'll start with Dan on this one.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think, most of the teams coming off of the byes are, they're pretty, it's like we kind of know who the stars are and everything. I am a little bit interested to see if Buffalo does anything with their running backs anymore, if there's any kind of separation between Singletary and Moss, because it's really kind of seesawed back and forth a little bit. As soon as you think Moss is up, then Singletary starts kind of getting a little bit of run, and then vice versa. So, I think that one's going to be interesting to see. I'm a little bit interested also to see in Buffalo. You just feel the Diggs explosion coming any day, and so I'm interested to see if that happens this week. But those are probably the biggest ones I have. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, I actually looked. When you guys sent it over, most of these teams, like everything's established, but the one thing I came up with is Jacksonville. Can they please figure out how to use Laviska Shenault, please?
Yes.
Like, that's the one thing I want to see if this bye week kind of gave them the opportunity to work on anything. Like, if he comes out and goes 5 for 42 again, then like he's droppable. Like, in my view, like he's barely startable as it is, but I mean the talent's there. Hopefully, that's the one hope that I want to see if they do anything different coming out of the bye with him.
Yeah, so I love that call with Visca.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Dan. What were you saying?
No, I'm just agreeing. I think that's a great call. I mean, because like Mike was saying, if he goes 5 for 42, he's just like kind of designer Zach Pascal or something. It's what does it do you? Not much really.
Yeah, I mean, he made the big catch that helped them win the game. So I think that's maybe you see some momentum with that. And they try to get him the ball early. Jacksonville's kind of a live dog against Seattle. That game's going to be interesting because Jacksonville, in my opinion, is moving the ball a lot better than them, and they're coming off the bye. For me, on the high end, I'm interested to see CeeDee Lamb. I thought he looked unbelievable last game, and I'm wondering if they're doing a little bit of self-scouting where they're just going to try to feature him, and maybe he just goes nuclear for the rest of the season. He had, I think it was 11 targets last game, which was the most he's had since game one. So I think that, if I'm the Cowboys, I'm going to CD double-digit targets every single game moving forward and kind of letting him establish himself as one of the best wide receivers in football. And then I'm contractually obligated to mention Pat Fryermuth. Shout out to Wheeler if he's listening. But I'm interested to see Pat Fryermuth coming off the bye week. He had a 7-catch game heading into the bye. And I'm interested to see if that he kind of fills a little bit of that Juju role in terms of being another pass catcher out there, and how his snaps are and whether he's featured coming out of the bye. So pretty much those two guys for me.
Yeah, that's a great call, Theo, without a doubt. And another great call has been made from afar by our fearless leader JD, reminding us we need to smash that like, hit the subscribe button. I'm a terrible host because I just get so interested in talking to our guests that I forget about all that other stuff. It's like, oh yeah, we're supposed to talk about sponsors, and we're supposed to remind people to actually like and subscribe to the show. So yes, do those things. Like the show, subscribe to the show. It really does help us out. And also, we want to keep getting great guests like Mike, and we've had a great run going over the past several weeks. Really, I think you could go back to pretty much June and look at almost every guest. We've had an outstanding run of just absolutely incredible players. People who really do an excellent job. They're not just people who play fantasy football, that they're people who win a lot of money at fantasy football. So, we appreciate all the support, and, getting that support helps us get guests like Mike and Billy and all of them. So stick with us and, help us out with that. All right. So moving on, let's see. What about any veteran players you're stoked to start in the playoffs, Mike? You got your eyes on some teams you think you're going to do good?
Yeah, I mean, listen, going into the season, there were a few teams that, I just know like it stood out. They had easy schedules, right? Everyone knows San Francisco has an easy schedule. Their playoff schedule is great. Can we get George Kittle back? Maybe he has a nice 3-week run like he's won. And the other one is like, and again, you have this guy, you're going to play him, but Hopkins, like his matchups are insane. And like, I can easily see a Kyler to Hopkins winning in the overalls because of the matchups they have, just like Breeze to Michael Thomas a few years ago. I can see it. So like those are the two vets I would say, like I would be looking for to potentially have big 3-week stretches coming down.
Yeah, absolutely. Theo?
For me, we've all been, extremely impressed with Lamar Jackson this year. And I think that the playoffs look like there could be some shootouts for Baltimore. They play, I believe it's Green Bay coming into Baltimore, and then actually in week 15, and then actually just pulled up the schedule. Week 16 is the rematch in Cincinnati. So you have to figure that that's going to be a little more high scoring unless there's weather concern. And then week 17 was really exciting. That was the Ravens hosting the Rams in Baltimore. So I think that if you have a Lamar, a Bateman, an Andrews, Hollywood Brown, you have potential for some smashes that week. And then the easy one is Falcons Bills. That game was circled before the year. A lot of people talked about as a game they wanted exposure to if they were high volume players, and I think it's really shaping up to be that. It's in Buffalo, so there's always a chance there's weather. But, Kyle Pitts, Calvin Ridley, all the weapons in Buffalo, Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen, you could have a really high-scoring game with positive game flow for Atlanta as well. So that's those are some players and teams I'm looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll throw in the Chargers. They get Kansas City and Houston in weeks 15 and 16. And then, a Denver team that may be playing out the string in week 17. So that I think there's a pretty good chance of some decent points coming out of those. And, Pittsburgh also looks real good. They've got Tennessee, Kansas City, and Cleveland. So that's not a bad way to close out the season. And, the Pittsburgh players haven't really been carrying anybody's team other than Najee Harris, so that might be, we always get some surprises in the 3-week sprint, for the big money. And, so that might be one of those, if somebody's got, Claypool and Najee Harris or Deontay Johnson, Najee Harris, or something like that, you could see a team, come from way back to, pull into the lead or close to the lead, at least make it a game of it. So, some fun stuff I think is going to go on the last 3 weeks as usual.
Deebo Samuel.
Yeah.
Deebo Samuel had it. We'll talk about Deebo because he's playing so well. Deebo had another big game this past weekend. What is your expectation for him moving forward? We've asked actually a few guests the last few weeks, like Dan said, we've had some really sharp people on. Interested to hear your opinion on Deebo moving forward when Kittle comes back. Do you see him finishing as a high-end wide receiver one, or do you think maybe he'll come back to earth a little bit here?
That for me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, Deebo was blowing up when Kittle was on the field at the beginning of the year. So, I mean, Shanahan has basically said, throw the ball to Deebo or throw the ball to Kittle when he's on the field. It's like avoid everyone else. Occasionally throw to Mohamed Sanu. Like Brandon Ayuk doesn't exist. So no, like the target shares for Deebo are crazy, and I don't expect it to change. If the guy just looks like he's on a different level out there, and if he doesn't get hurt, knock on wood, I have a lot of shares. and he keeps producing, I don't see why anything would change. I mean, I think it'll be concentrated between when Kittle comes back, between Debo and Kittle and the running game. I think that's their offense. I think that's what it is. And I don't see anything changing, to be honest.
Dan?
Yeah, I'm as somebody who did not get enough Debo this year, but I did get I had some Elijah Mitchell to start with, and then I made big bids in a lot of other leagues because, why not? I'm definitely hoping the running game continues to keep crushing and that Elijah Mitchell continues to keep crushing. But yeah, I think it's Debo and hopefully Kittle. But you almost have to ask yourself, has Garoppolo been threatened with being fined if he throws to Ayuk, or what's going on there? How much is the fine?
That's another key piece to this too. How long does if Garoppolo is the quarterback, nothing's going to change. If Lance gets the job, it could change with Lance because we just don't know. We don't know what we don't know at this point with him. We hope it doesn't, but that's the one dynamic that could alter this.
And I'm with you guys on Debo. I mean, it's clear. It's clear as day. His target share is going to be one of the better ones in the league. And I think that even when Kittle comes back, I don't think it's necessarily going to take away from him. And I'll follow up this question. We'll pivot over to Dynasty for a second because JD, Dan, and I had a conversation. JD was considering, we talked about potentially trading Debo at his peak. Or is this something you think he can sustain as a player? Would you be looking to sell him in Dynasty, Dan, if you weren't, necessarily one of the top 2 teams, 3 teams in your league? Is this peak Debo, or do you think this is just the trajectory of his career, and he's truly an elite wide receiver, or is he somebody you should, cash out on?
I would be willing to cash out if I'm not competing this year. I mean, if I'm competing this year, I'm absolutely keeping him. I almost don't care what I get offered. But if I'm not competing this year, yeah, I would cash out, but I would make sure I'm getting a good price for it. I'm not just going to do it to do it, because he's, you can still build around him. A renovation shouldn't take, that long. Maybe you're down for a year and then you're back up the next year. So, if you can accomplish a pretty quick reno, if I can't get a good price for Samuel, I'll just keep him.
What do you think, Mike? Do you think next year he's a second-round pick in NFFC, or do you think it's for redraft? For
redraft, I mean, if he keeps up at this pace, like he could be, yeah. I mean, just thinking about it, like he could end up. I would see he'd be a little bit better than like peak Ayuk was this year, so maybe he's more of an early third. But if he finishes the season strong like this, that's where he would end up, I think, in redraft for next year. End of the second, early third, for sure.
All right. I have to ask the follow-up question on that. Is he a good second-round pick in that case?
Yeah, I mean, he's the type of player, and we see it with a lot of these guys who are injury prone. Like, listen, I love the player. I hope he can stay healthy. But probably not, to be honest with you. He's probably not a good second-round pick. He's a great 6th, 7th, 8th round pick where he was this year. But yeah, I'd probably be out at that price point just because, he's too injury prone. I mean, he's shown that so far, and I hope it doesn't happen. But he's not the type of receiver that I'd be comfortable taking there.
All right.
Yeah. And I think that in terms of redraft, I think he might end up being a guy who's, if he holds on, will be a classic example of a guy who jumps 6 rounds and maybe isn't the right price this year type. And then in terms of Dynasty, you have the injury concerns. He'll be 26 in January. I mean, he looks unbelievable. And we've talked continually on the GOAT District about, selling at the very peak in Dynasty is sometimes the correct move, even if it doesn't feel right. And I think this might be that case with Debo. I mean, right now you could probably get 2 first-round picks for him. So it's a very interesting question, and I'll be interested to hear on Thursday night when we're a little bit more Dynasty-oriented this week, what you guys have to say about that. But definitely an interesting player. Wanted to pivot over to the rookies. Are there any rookies or players that are in the process of breaking out that you're watching closely that could be potential playoff contributors? Maybe a rookie that hasn't shown it yet, but you think it's coming, or he's shown it a little bit and you think it's just going to be a blow up type situation, Mike?
Yeah, I have a couple kind of, they may have shown a little flash. One is, I don't know if it's an obvious one, but from what we've seen on the field, I'm a Giants fan. I think Kadarius Toney is one for sure. To be fair, I hated the draft pick. Like, I think most people hated it for the Giants. But what I've seen, I'm getting a lot of OBJ vibes from when OBJ was a rookie. He started slow, he was hurt, he came on, and then he just blew up. And I think if he can get healthy, and the Giants can get all their offensive tools back with Barkley, with Golladay, with Toney, I think their offense is going to be scary. Honestly, I really do. I think he's one. And the other one I would say that I think this week showed is Michael Carter from the Jets. I think he just had like a 72% snap share. If he gets that going forward, and he's going to get the dump offs as well as the rushing going out, and especially with Flacco coming in now, if he can stabilize the offense, assuming he's going to play, I think he's another one that could be good going down the stretch.
Yeah, what about you, Dan?
I was definitely on board with the Michael Carter call. I think potentially, Rondale Moore could be that player if something happens to, one of the other players in Arizona. But that I'm a little bit less confident about that. One I really like is Devonta Smith. He's been getting the volume. And there's been so many near misses with him, where it's just off his fingertips, or it ends up being interference, or whatever it is. But there's been a lot of near misses with Devonta Smith, and I do think he's a legit talent, and so he's somebody that I'm kind of eyeing, that I'm hoping really starts to break out as the season goes along. How about you, Theo?
So I really like Mike's ball on Kadarius Toney, and I think if you're playing in home leagues, I think he's a great buy low right now. Dynasty, I would still be trying to feel out the waters, because I think he's super, super talented, and he's flashed. And I think that, recency bias, the fact that, he missed last week, and he's got kind of a small sample size, it might be the cheapest time to buy him. He looks great. I like both of you guys on Michael Carter. For me, it's Rashad Bateman. I think we waited for Bateman, and he's had 6 targets in each game he's been active this season. Last week he had like 80 yards receiving. He just looks so good with the football in his hand. And I think that it's one of these guys, we talk about smart teams making good decisions on bye weeks. Baltimore's on the bye this week. I think that it's when we come off the bye, especially coming off of a loss, I think it's going to be, all three receivers in Baltimore you should feel very good about. But I think that they realize what they have in Bateman. I think he'll be the highly targeted guy, and I think you'll see him, making a lot of big plays. And I think he'll be the kind of guy that's in your starting lineup, every week, starting week 9 when he comes back. I think he's that good.
Yeah, I definitely hope so. I've got him in a couple places, and Wheeler's, still banging the drum for Elijah Moore, which I would love to see it happen.
Me too.
I hope Wheeler's right on that one. Wheeler's one of the best rankers in the world is Wheeler. So I really hope you're right on that one, Wheeler, because I have so much Elijah Moore, and it's just painful. And last week, he scores the touchdown, but the usage is just the usage is not where you want it to be. Michael Carter, it's there, but Moore, that would be one.
Can we get a Crowder trade this week? Can we get that? Maybe.
Cross your fingers. Yes. That would be great. That would be fantastic.
Crowder,
can we get an Allen Robinson trade too, please? Because that one I don't even want to talk about because it's so depressing.
Yeah, we definitely need that. A Marlon Mack trade would not be bad, but with Mack, it's more like you're hoping that he goes to a different team where he's actually can get some playing time. With the other guys, you're hoping for the resurrection. So,
Allen Robinson's actually a good segue to the next question, Dan. What big name players should be finding a place on our benches? And we've already talked about Tyler Lockett.
Yep.
Who else would be guys? Go ahead, Dan. You could start this one.
Yeah, Lockett was definitely my pick for that. He needs to be on the bench right now. And Allen Robinson, he's another one that I can't really play. And these guys aren't necessarily big time players, but like, Laviska Shenault, he needs to show me something or he's not, he's on my bench until further notice. And, same with, I'm blanking on who I just had. Go ahead, Mike. I'll try to come back to my guy when I'm not blanking.
Yeah. I had 4 guys for this one, and one was Tyler Lockett, one was Allen Robinson. So we said them. The other 2, one is OBJ. Like, I am so done with him. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, he just keeps sucking me in, and I'm like totally done. And the other one is Julio. Like, I'm officially done with him too. I think he's just over the hill at this point. I just can't take it anymore. Every week it's a different injury, and the offense just can't support both receivers at this point with Derrick Henry. So I think he's simply a bye week fill-in at this point, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and agree with you on all 4. OBJ might be the most disappointing one for me. I felt really good about him this year, and he looks like dust. Allen Robinson is extremely disappointing. I'm really hoping for a trade. I don't know if it'll happen, but for a player of his caliber to not crack wide receiver 3 in any game this year is just crazy. We've talked about Tyler Lockett. Lockett's one of the hard ones to bench. I feel like in a lot of places, you might want to play him against Jacksonville.
Right.
it's just really, really tough. But I completely agree with you on OBJ. All of those guys are just extremely disappointing, and it makes me want to, not draft older wide receivers, next year at all. Just give me all the 25 and under guys, and I'll take my chances. But then you miss out on Cooper Kupp. So.
Yeah, or Adam Thielen, who's still
Adam Thielen,
in the end zone.
Yeah.
So some older wide receivers, but I want to be more selective with.
Yeah, and speaking of Kupp, Robert Woods is who I was trying to come up with it. He's not exactly benchable, but I sure don't feel good putting him in my starting lineup right now either. So
he's Tyler Boyd plus. That's what he is right now. So
right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Or Hunter Renfro-ish if you want to get serious with it. You might feel a little bit better about Chef Renfro some weeks than those guys.
Ouch. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, before we get to our next one, just put in a plug for the FFPC. One of our favorite sites to play. I know Mike's on there because I can tell you that Mike is in a league with me and Theo, or we split a team. Theo and I split 2 teams, and we have one that's doing really, really well, and then we have the team that's in the league with Mike.
That team is brutal. That team has Allen Robinson on it.
Yes, it does.
That's your Waller team, right?
Yeah,
that's our Waller team as well.
Yep. It's that team is a hot mess right now. We had Allen Robinson, we had Waller, we had it's got Jerry Jeudy, so missed several weeks of him, and it's just been pain and disappointment all over the place. And then
talk about the other team. Just talk about the other team, Dan. That team's
exactly.
a lot more fun to talk about.
But like Shelley was saying, sometimes you just got to talk about those ones that are really, really bad. Just kind of celebrate their badness. We have another team that's doing really well. We got the Brady at quarterback, Kamara, Mike Evans, Justin Jefferson, Godwin, T. Higgins. So we got some good players moving along there and keeping that team going every single week. We somehow find a way to get up into the 180s. So it's a nice squad. But anyway, the nice thing about the FFPC is you can just build your team any way you want. If you want to go double tight end, you can go double tight end. If you want to start off with 4 running backs, you could do that. If you want to go, 0 running back, you could do that. There's no right way to build your FFPC team. So it really allows you to take advantage of falling value in drafts. And so you can just be a little bit more, a little bit more like water. Whereas in, some other contests, you might feel the need to draft more wide receivers. You might feel the need to, push the quarterback up a little bit or whatever. But in the FFPC, you can go any way that you really want. So make sure you're checking them out. If you're not on them so far this year, they're going to be doing a playoff challenge. It's a lot of fun. So check with us around the end of the season. We're probably going to have some free giveaways around that playoff challenge. So hop in for those too. All right, let's see. Where are we at? Michael, how are you doing on time?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. We'll try to hustle up and see if we can get these last few in the next few minutes here. So, where do you want to go, Theo?
Well, I'd say easy one. What game are we most excited for this week, guys? Start with Mike.
I mean, it was going to be the Thursday game, but
right.
I mean, I'm kind of still. I know there was another kind of question on here about Adams, but I don't think he's officially been ruled out yet, right? Like he could still test positive. I mean, he can still have 2 negative tests in play. If Adams can play, it's Thursday game. I mean, for me, selfishly, the other game as a Giant fan is Monday night versus Kansas City. I mean, Kansas City's in shambles now. Maybe the Giants can go in and win that game. I'm doubting it, but at least it's an exciting game for me as a fan to watch.
How about you, Dan?
It's definitely got to be Dallas, Minnesota for me. As a guy who went to school in Texas and lives in Minnesota, that game's already got plenty of intrigue for me. And then, with the fantasy implications, that's, we're talking about 2 fantastic offenses, some just outstanding receivers, running backs, everything. So I'm really excited, and I'm glad it's an island game so that we can all focus on it.
Yeah, I think that those were both great calls by you guys. Minnesota Dallas has a total of 53 right now, so it should be a good game for fantasy football. And I live in Long Island. Mike's a Giants fan, lives in Jersey, so it's really kind of cool to see the Giants playing the Chiefs, and you think they have like a little bit of a chance. I think it'll be really fun. It's Giants coming off of a win where their defense played really well, and you're seeing the Chiefs' offensive line struggle. It's a very interesting game. So I think that would be one where if Joe Judge gets that one, I think people will lay off him for a bunch of weeks. So it's a really important one. For me, the game that I'm most excited about is the Chargers-Patriots. Last year, that was 45-0 Patriots. It was just the worst game for Herbert that you could imagine. It was a classic Belichick versus a rookie game. Herbert at that point was a weekly starter, and that game killed a lot of people's chances in fantasy for pretty much anybody starting Herbert that week caught an L. So Chargers coming off of a bye, the game's in LA. That's like a real test to see Herbert in a game where he should have revenge on the mind. So I'm really excited about that game. Probably the most of any this week besides that Minnesota Dallas.
Yeah, and here's a kind of low-key one too that interests me a lot is at Tampa Bay at New Orleans. I think that's going to be a really interesting game. As somebody who's like, I'm invested up to the armpits in Tampa, and that one scares me a little bit more so than almost any other game on the schedule this year because New Orleans defense is really playing lights out, and they basically slowly crushed the life out of Seattle on Monday night. Obviously, Tom Brady and the Bucs are going to be a little bit more difficult to do that with, but I will be interested to see how the Bucs offense handles that Saints defense.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. That one, because Lattimore always gives Evans problems. Mm-hmm. I think they need AB. I don't know what his status is, but like if AB plays, I think that could make a big difference for that one.
Yeah, AB would help. Gronk would definitely help too. Just to have two big bodies and down around the goal line along with Evans. So yeah, I'm hopeful that Gronk comes back. I've got my Gronk shares started off so good. And I was so happy to have him everywhere. And now it's like, week after week after week of just, not playing.
Yeah.
So hopefully he can get in there before the bye week. But if not, I think pretty sure after the bye, he'll be in there. So.
Yeah, I had, and I don't know if this is the one with you guys or not, but I had one FFPC main event that tight ends went berserk like crazy high, and I just decided to lay off, and I went 9th round Brady, 10th round Gronk. So it was looking really good for the first few weeks. So I need him to come back as well for that.
Yeah, there's no doubt. That's a nice connection there. I've got it in a few places as well.
And then, as a question for Mike, we're kind of halfway through the season. A very experienced player like yourself with a lot of teams. How do you start treating your bench? What sort of players are you looking for as you build your roster? Are you looking to have as many handcuff running backs? Are you looking for depth at a particular position? Do you start trying to roster two with the one-offs? How do you go about your process, Mike?
Yeah, so I mean, the bench is always as many, for me anyway, as many handcuff running backs as I can get that I think can be difference makers, right? There's a difference between like a Brandon Bolden and like a Samaje Perine, like we talked about before. Like there's a big difference on those two type of guys there. I tend to roster a lot of, at least this year, I have a lot of teams that have like the top 5, top 6 quarterback on them. So, there's a lot of strategy involved where you may not, COVID kind of throws a different wrench into it, but where you may not carry 2 quarterbacks for the beginning, but as you start to get closer to the bye weeks, you got to make sure you have your quarterback in there. But once you get past all that, my bench, like I always want to have at least 6 solid receivers that I know I can interchangeably cover bye weeks. As long as I have that, like the most of my bench is going to be covered with running backs. And then as we get closer to the 3-week stretch, then I'll make sure I double up, make sure I have the 2 tight ends, the 2 quarterbacks as we get into like no fab time frame. And I'll start looking at the kickers and the defenses and those kind of things as we get closer. But as where we are now, it's always about the running backs. Like no matter where you are in the season, you just got to make sure you have them, because as we've seen this year, there's always, every week there's a new guy out there that's playing. So I think that's where my benches are focused.
Yeah, that's a great point, because right now is a time where you can really start looking at for me, I start looking at those kickers and defenses now that some of them are getting past the bye, and looking for that guy who gets dropped or is sitting on the waiver wire for whatever reason.
Yep,
that has a really juicy playoff schedule. And I just try to sneak them onto my roster right now, because if they probably aren't going to make that much of a difference the rest of the way between them and whoever else I might have at kicker. But if I can get that one with a good playoff schedule and just hold them right now, even if that means I'm, that's my only kicker for now, I'm willing to do it if I think I've got a really good team that's got a strong chance.
I think those are great points you both made. And I'll also add that it's a nice time to add those injured reserve guys that are coming back. If your roster can handle it, a lot of times people can't hold those guys. We don't have IR spots in these non-dynasty formats. So, Logan Thomas was dropped in a lot of places. I think he was a guy you could have picked up for cheap. And there's a few guys like that. And I think that was also a great point that you're gonna with the bye weeks, especially last week with like the bye Mageddon. You're gonna see a lot of interesting guys available. On your waiver wire this week. And in terms of some of the one-off spots, you'll see Tyler Bass, the Buffalo Bills defense, some positions like that. You might be able to get a guy you can just set it and forget it with. This week as well.
Yeah, the kickers especially, like. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I don't always focus, especially early in the season. I'm not focusing on with all the teams I have to check kicker. But I've gone through Fab already for all my teams, and I would say on more than 50% of them, Bass or Zerloin are available. So like check, because you may have someone like Suck Up or someone that's coming up with a bye that you may want to pick one of those guys up because they're good kickers and they've already had their bye. So you could set it and forget it, just like you said.
Yep, for sure. I'm trying to. I think this is the only week, or last week was the only week that we had 6 teams on bye this year, right?
Yeah, it's the only one. I think there's one more week coming up with 4, but I think that you're pretty much in the clear.
Yeah, I know week 9 and 10 have 4. I'm not sure about week 11, but is there anybody on bye even week 11? There must be. But I know there was a week that got skipped in there, I believe, if I remember right, like week 11, week 12, something like that. And then there's buys on week 13 and 14.
Yeah,
it's really weird this year.
Week 13 was annoying. In week 14, there was a couple of guys. It was the Jonathan Taylor one for the FFPC. If you remember, he was getting faded a little bit because of that bye week. So the late bye is annoying, but you'd almost rather have kind of deal with that week 13 bye than something in week 8. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to get back to we touched on Thursday night. If Adams and Lazard are both out, like they probably are. What sort of players what sort of players are you looking at, guys, to step up in Green Bay? Dan touched on MVS. Should we expect to see a little more out of the running backs? What way are you guys seeing that game? If you're looking to try to look for potentially a streamer, or maybe avoid the streamers entirely. We'll start with you, Dan.
Yeah, so with Green Bay, I would, as I said before, if Valdez-Scantling looks good, he's somebody that I would like to get on my rosters. Any place where I feel like I'm in a little bit of trouble with wide receiver, because if Adams and Lazard are out, I think Valdez-Scantling's probably going to be one of the leaders. Tanyan, obviously, but in most leagues that ship has sailed, or at least in the FFPC, either you have Tanyan or you don't at this point. Even though he kind of sucks, people still aren't dropping him. In the NFFC, Tanyan might be a more realistic possibility. So, that's possible too. And just in general, I think I'm gonna basically be starting all my passing options in Arizona as well. I want Hopkins out there. I want if I've got Christian Kirk and I need a guy, or if I've got Kyler Murray, obviously he's going to go. So that's the way I'm going with that one. How about you,
Mike? Which way would you go with this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really holding out hope somehow that Adams can play in this game.
Right.
I'm really worried if he doesn't play because, Green Bay has a slow pace as it is. And if he doesn't play, I just feel like they're going to slow it down even more. And that could have an impact on Arizona too. Unless Arizona is very efficient in scoring, and they're typically not, to be honest. They're usually not efficient. They can score, but if Green Bay is slowing the pace and they're going to run it with, it's going to be the Aaron Jones show if Adams doesn't play. Typically, that's what happens when he's out of the lineup. So I would expect a big game from him. I don't know. Like I'm very concerned. And this is in New York Super. I have Kyler and Hopkins, and I want Adams out there for sure. But if not, it's probably going to be, like I said, it's going to be the Aaron Jones show. There'll be a little Tanyan in there, maybe some Randall Cobb. I mean, I don't expect like a huge Aaron Rodgers game though without Lazard and Adams. I think it would be focused on the running game.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I agree with Dan that MVS is interesting. I don't expect. I mean, Adams is just like the timing couldn't be worse because, like you said, you need the 2 negative tests. If it was Sunday, we'd have a lot better chance. But just it's such a bummer when you have a guy that looks like he's in a smash spot, in a primetime game, and then he misses. It's just terrible. But I don't know. I feel like I might try to avoid the Green Bay pass catchers, but if I needed to play one, it would be MVS. I think if there's ever going to be an Aaron Jones like complete smash volume game, it might be this one because I think he's going to have to do an absolute lot if they're gonna beat Arizona. And I like Dan's call about using all those Arizona weapons. And I will say that Chase Edmonds has not scored a touchdown yet. This seems like this could be the game. Prime time. It just feels like Chase Edmonds is due for a really big stat line. So I mean, I'm excited for the game, but it takes a lot of the shine off it with no Devonta.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, I'm just hoping Arizona is going to get out there and try to turn it into a track meet a little bit. We know Green Bay is going to slow down the pace, like Michael said, but hopefully Arizona will try to put the pressure on them to try to keep up without Adams. If I was Kingsbury, I think that's the way I'd approach it, but who knows? All right,
on to Denver.
Yeah, for Denver. Yeah, we've got Denver. We've got Jerry Jeudy and Alberto coming back. What do you see, Mike, as being the pin action there on the rest of that offense? What's the ripple effects? Who's helped? Who's hurt?
Yeah, I think Fant's the one that's going to get squeezed a little bit. I like Fant, and he's been nice the last few weeks. Alberto alone, it's going to hurt him. But with Jeudy coming back, like I'm a big Jeudy guy. I liked what in the preseason. I thought he was gonna have a monster year this year. But with Sutton, it's gonna be interesting to see how this is gonna work because Sutton's looked good too. Last month. So I definitely think they can support both of them. I think Jeudy and Sutton can both get theirs. But I think if that happens, then I'm gonna think it's gonna be Fant that's gonna take kind of the backseat to those guys from a volume standpoint, and hope maybe.
I think you froze, Stan.
Yep. I think so.
I'll go ahead and agree with Mike that I think that Fant could potentially see a little bit of a reduced role here. Judy's just open. Guy gets open. He's the kind of guy that I think if he was healthy, he would have had 100 catches. And I'm very excited to see him come back and kind of show some of the things that a lot of the better players that have come on the GOAT District were extremely high on Jeudy. Dan was extremely high on Jeudy, and I have a lot of Jeudy as well. So I'm hopeful for that. Sutton's looked great. I don't think he's gonna go away, but I do think if I had to bet on one of them being more highly targeted, it would be Jerry Jeudy at this point.
Yeah, I think that's realistic, and and also this helps out Bridgewater too, as Wheeler just pointed out. Good job, Wheeler. You're taking the thoughts exactly from me. It's especially with playing. They're playing Washington this week, which is obviously the Washington pass defense has had its problems. So Bridgewater was a guy that I'm using in a couple places, like where I've got Lamar Jackson. So hopefully he comes up with a good game for me, just to kind of sub in. It looks like we might be getting Mike back here. There we go. He's back.
There we go.
I don't know. I guess the rain must have dropped my internet there for a second.
Yep. No big deal. It's happened to all of us for sure. Any other thoughts on the Denver situation?
No. I think I said it all. I think you guys caught most of what I was saying there as I was disconnected.
Yeah,
and just just curious, your thoughts on Javonte Williams, Mike. We saw him last week. He looked very good. Do you think that this is something where his role is going to increase, or do you think it's still going to maintain a split pretty much with Melvin Gordon?
Yeah, I think what's the term? I think they got a bunch of boomers running that organization. Unfortunately, I think the play on the field kind of shows you that he should kind of gain more as we go on. If Melvin doesn't get hurt, I don't see them doing it. Unfortunately, I just feel like it's going to be continually a 50-50 split. I think we'll need a Melvin injury in order for him to kind of take over that 70 to 80% snap share, which I think he deserves it, to be honest. I mean, I almost wish Melvin Gordon didn't get that touchdown last week, because it was a nice touchdown, don't get me wrong, but Javonte just looks so good, like, on his touches. You know, I'm hoping that he can kind of pull through, but I just don't see it. I think next year is going to be his year to kind of break through.
Yeah, at this point, I'm almost hoping that, you know, it's just kind of continues like this the rest of the year, so that Javonte can slide under the radar a little bit for next year.
Yeah.
But you know, but then again, in the sharp leagues that we often find ourselves in, good luck with that.
Yeah, I think Javonte is going to be the kind of guy that people, you know, walk into a draft saying, "I got to get Javonte. I got to get Javonte." He'll be Antonio Gibson this year, and you know, he'll shoot up this summer.
Yeah.
And then we touched on it. Is there any other players that you've been super disappointed in this season? You know, we've touched on those Tyler Lockett's and Allen Robinsons and, you know, Robert Woods. Is there anybody else that jumps out at you that we haven't talked about?
Yeah, you just mentioned them, actually. Antonio Gibson, like, he's
Yes.
been, and he was one of my guys. Like for me, Antonio Gibson and Najee Harris were my two guys. Like, if in the first round, those were one of the two guys I wanted. If I could get those were it. If I didn't get a top 5 where I was getting, you know, Cook, CMC, or could get Adams or Tyreek, those were the guys I wanted. I wanted to pick towards the back, and I wanted one of them. And Najee's doing his thing, but, you know, Gibson, honestly, he's looked really good. Like, until this shin thing happened, like, he looked good. I can still remember sitting in Vegas watching that game, sitting next to Glenn Schroeder, King of Queens, and just saying, like, dude, like, why aren't they giving him the ball? Like, every time he touches the ball, it's 6 yards before they touch him. And then, you know, they would, you know, he didn't get taken off the field there, but they just didn't give him the ball. And now the game scripts just haven't worked in his favor right now. I don't necessarily think it's all on him right now. They need to get more positive game scripts for him. Unfortunately, I think we were hoping for a little more of that not to happen. But it just looks like, you know, McKissick's not going away, and, you know, Gibson is just not going to be what those of us who thought he could be, that elite first round caliber guy. He's just not that. It just seems like it. I mean, the talent's there. I still have hope, you know, maybe after the bye week, you know, he can heal up and come back and kind of and do what we wanted, but he's my most disappointing guy for sure.
Yeah,
I think it's a great call.
That was
go
my
ahead,
guy
Dave.
too. Yeah, for sure. Gibson was my guy as well. And, you know, the Ryan Fitzpatrick injury just really, you know, that hurt in a lot of ways that are kind of understated. You know, I think that probably has kept them out of some positive game scripts that they might have otherwise been in. You know, the Washington defense not being really good, that's also hurt. You know, so there's just it's been a kind of variety of things. And then, of course, you know, the shin fracture or whatever, you know, nobody still knows whether, you know, I haven't heard whether it's really shin splints or is it an actual shin fracture. I think I'm hearing more towards the shin fracture rather than shin splints, but either way, it's just not working very well. So JD says 40% Gibson for him. It kind of feels like it.
Yeah.
I have a lot of Gibson. Yeah.
I had, you know, 30+% Gibson in Football Guys tournaments this summer. I drafted him, you know, quite a number of places, and I felt really sharp doing so. I agree. It's super disappointing. I think that my lesson learned is that if a guy, if a pass catching back really, really flashes the year before, I think that, and he's with the same coaching staff, I think he's just not going to go away. And I think McKissick, we all kind of, I mean, McKissick was going, you know, really late, you know, for the season he had last year. And, you know, he's kind of one of these guys that the coaching staffs like him. He catches the ball, and they're going to find a place for him on the field. And I think that we kind of pushed Gibson a little too hard up based on the fact that we thought McKissick was going to disappear. And I think it was just kind of the wrong process. So that will kind of be my takeaway from it. I'm still hopeful that Gibson, like you said, Mike, coming off with the bye week coming up, can really close out the season well. He was so strong, you know, in those, you know, Thanksgiving was his huge breakout game, against Dallas last year. So, hopefully he can have a really, really strong November this year and kind of, get those win rates back up for Gibson teams. But I think that's a great call. And, like I said earlier, Allen Robinson, that's the biggest disappointment. I'm completely shocked by the season. I thought he'd be a 150 target guy, downside 130 targets. It's just not going to happen. I think he's got a spot on my bench. And for me, it's really a guy where when he fell to me at a certain spot in the third round, I felt like I was getting like a bargain. I felt like people should have taken him earlier. So I would almost take him as a value guy. And I couldn't have been more wrong. We can blame Fields, we can blame Nagy, but it's just not happening right now.
Yep, for sure. All right. Well, I think we probably better let Mike get back to his real life, and first off, make sure you're following Mike. He's criminally underfollowed in my book. At Edelman 24 is the Twitter handle, correct?
Yes.
And yeah, so right there on the screen, if you're happening to catch the YouTube version, you see it right there. If not, again, at Edelman 24. Make sure you're following him. I mean, this guy, you won't see him tweet a ton, but when he does tweet, it's good stuff. So, get out there and make sure you're following Michael. And anything else you want to leave us with, Mike?
No, that's it. I appreciate you guys having me. It's been a lot of fun. I look forward to competing against you guys in all the leagues we're in as we finish out the season, and just wish you guys luck. Hopefully we'll see each other in the 3-week sprint.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you as well, Mike. This was awesome. We'd love to have you back on.
Yep.
Yeah, this was great. Thanks.
Yeah, we'll for sure do this again. All right, and then make sure you check out Theo, because Theo's he's too shy to mention it, but he does a great waiver wire column for Player Profiler every week. So we're gonna force you to not be shy, Theo. Give us a quick 30-second spiel on that.
So I'm doing the waiver wire article. It's coming out every Tuesday. It's been good stuff. We've had a number of hits this year. And we like to, I have guys that can help, pretty much in any league. There'll be somebody who can be added. There's some guys that will be, helpful to FFPC and NFFC players, and, guys in more 15-man roster Yahoo leagues. So we've hit on a lot of them this year, and we'll continue to try to pump out great content. And I appreciate that, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good stuff. It's well worth your while to check it out. So every week, Theo puts it out on Tuesdays. So check that out. For me, you can find me here on the Goat District, and otherwise I just tweet nonsense every once in a while, and, feel free to, follow it or ignore it at your own peril, or, your own pleasure. But we're going to get you guys out of here, and thanks for hanging with us tonight.
Goat District, the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.